Software engineering has changed dramatically in 2026, and over the past few months, my opinion on AI as it relates to software engineering and the job market has changed as well. Now in this video, I want to go through 5 major shifts that I've seen recently and what I believe this means for the future of software development. Now the first shift that I've noticed is that no one writes code anymore. No one is actually sitting there typing out hundreds of thousands of lines of code. The new models, especially your Opus and your Codex models, are insanely good, they're extremely fast, and they produce so much code that it really becomes more of a burden to review the code than it does to simply produce it. And that's really what I want to focus on in this point, is that while these AI models have gotten increasingly better and better, and they're going to continue to improve, we're kind of at the point where the bottleneck is no longer how good is the AI model and how fast can it produce the code. It's much more how much code can you actually review and understand as a human being. I don't know about you guys, but I can't sit there and read a 10,000 line pull request and deeply understand all of the decisions that were made, know if all of the code is clean and correct and accurate, and build that kind of deep domain expertise and knowledge that I would traditionally have about a code base that I'm working on. When I was working on my startup 2 or 3 years ago, I wrote 95% of the code by hand. Maybe a few functions were generated with AI, but generally speaking, I understood everything in the code base. I knew where to go to fix a problem. I knew where, different events were being delegated or handled. I knew, the architecture and the decisions. And even if I didn't write everything and I had employees doing it, I knew what they were doing because they were submitting, small pull requests that I could review. We're now at the point where we can produce so much software so quickly, but we can't review it. And if we're not reviewing it properly, we're not really understanding what's going on. And then when a problem does occur in the future, it becomes very burdensome to actually fix, and you have to dive in and learn the code base from scratch, which is very annoying. So I don't know what you guys think about this, but what I've seen with beginners specifically is that they're leaning a lot into this. They're generating so much code, and especially without any real practical experience in a code base like that, they have no idea what they're doing. And when they get into a real job, sure, they can, just have the model do something, but they don't really know why. They can't back up their decisions. They don't contain that kind of deep critical thinking skill that is so important to being a software engineer, even if the AI is generating a lot of the code. Now, with that said, while this industry is changing so quickly and it is very overwhelming, a lot of these AI tools do make your life a lot easier. For example, one I've used now for over a year is called Wispr Flow. This is the best voice dictation tool that I've used, and they actually just launched on Android. Now, this has been a total game changer for how I use my phone as well as my computer when I'm using the tool, and it is the fastest and most accurate voice to text that I've ever used. You just hold the flow button in any app and start talking. It runs inside of whatever you're already using with no setup required. So something like WhatsApp, Gmail, Notes, ChatGPT, Claude, Cursor, whatever, it works everywhere that you would normally be able to type. Now, what makes it different from your phone or computer's built-in dictation is that it actually cleans up what you say. So filler words get removed, self-corrections get handled, punctuation and formatting come out right. So instead of getting a wall of unedited text that you have to fix manually, you get something that you can just send right away. Now for me, the biggest unlock has been AI prompts on mobile. So I used to keep my ChatGPT and Claude prompts really short just on my phone because I don't want to type it out. But now I can just talk and my prompts are way more detailed and specific, which always gives me a better output. Now I also love that it follows you between apps, so you can start dictating in one app, switch to check something, and come back without losing your place. Now that's something that native mobile dictation just can't do. Now it supports over 100 languages, and honestly the thing that keeps me coming back to it and why I'm promoting it right now is because it just works every single time. So if you're not using voice on your phone or computer right now, you're leaving a lot of speed on the table, and I've been fortunate enough to partner with Wispr Flow, so if you want, you can try it out for free from the link in the description. I'll be making a more detailed video on it later, so just stay tuned. Keep in mind it was just released on Android, so you can check it out there. Now, the next major trend that I'm noticing is that the skill gap is widening extremely fast. And what I mean by this is effectively those developers that are using AI versus those that aren't, we're seeing a massive shift in the amount of output and productivity that they're having. Now, I talk with a lot of developers that work at some of these big tech companies, and while a lot of them are adopting AI quickly, they're not necessarily forcing it on their employees, and you have a lot of older school developers who are objectively extremely talented, very skilled, have 20 plus years of experience, but are being resistant to using a lot of these AI tools. They don't want to change their workflow, they want to write their code manually, and they want to keep that deep expertise of the code base that I talked about. And while that's valuable and they can still produce a lot of meaningful work, they're just falling behind relative to those that are adopting AI. One good developer with AI is going to beat one great developer that doesn't use any AI tools in terms of the output that they can produce. And even newer developers that are embracing AI, while they might not be as technically skilled or have as much experience, they can still produce a massive amount of output and be extremely productive and valuable to a company. So it's really kind of a weird place we're in right now where the fundamentals still matter, right? Software engineering, computer science principles, they're still important. You still should know them, but not as much as they used to be. And we're moving to this world where knowing the syntax, right, and understanding for loops and if statements, while I think arguably you should still know that, they're becoming less and less important. And the developers that are focusing on the higher leverage skills, like how do I use an AI model? How do I set up my workspace? How do I just learn the most in-demand thing right now, are really standing out and producing a lot compared to those that are spending all of their time, memorizing syntax in a framework, right? And I think the only way that you can really keep up right now is you just have to be locked into what's going on in the industry. I'm fortunate enough to kind of be an influencer. I'm on social media, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Threads. I see all of the stuff that's happening. I see all of the headlines. I see all of the videos that are blowing up. If you're not someone like that and you spend even, a month disconnected from your computer, you're not looking at the news sites for, the next AI model, you're just already behind. And that's extremely overwhelming, but that's just what I'm seeing. The people who are locked in, who are passionate, who are excited about the change are seeing massive opportunities and making more money than ever. And those that aren't are just slowly seeing their career decline. And it's kind of just inevitable when they're going to get to the point where they're being replaced because they're not using these tools. Then the next point I'm going to go over is difficult to say, but it is just the truth of what I'm seeing. And that is that junior developers are just kind of cooked right now. Now, look, we've kind of known that for the past year or so, and I've worked with a lot of developers. I've been able to help get them jobs, but it's much more difficult than it was before. And especially if you have zero experience now, you're really fighting an uphill battle because what companies are expecting of you is just so insane at a junior level because it needs to be that insane. You need to be able to provide value in order for you to be more useful than just a random AI model, right, that can spit out code. We used to have junior developers just do like grunt work, right? Okay, go write some unit tests. Okay, go just write the code, where like a lot of your job was not making tough decisions. It was just generally writing the code that needed to be inputted with your fingers on the keyboard. We no longer need that anymore, which means that as a junior, your expectations have now jumped much higher to more of like a mid or senior level developer of 5 or 6 years ago, which is very difficult to learn on your own without having any experience. What I'm personally seeing right now is that there's less junior jobs than there were before. The ones that do exist are extremely competitive, and the ones that are being successful in landing these junior jobs typically have built something extremely meaningful. So like they had an app, for example, that had 100 users, 1,000 users. They built a small startup. They went to a top school, right? They had something that was significant and unique, and they had the right balance between learning fundamental skills and utilizing AI. The issue with a lot of beginners right now, and it's a really tough thing to prescribe, is how much time should I spend focusing on the fundamental skills of software development versus keeping up to date with what's going on and using AI models, learning the tools, changing my workflow. The juniors that I've seen be successful in this industry so far and have broken in the past month or two, they found the correct balance where they're learning the fundamentals. They know big O notation. They know how to like solve a LeetCode problem, for example, right? But they're also keeping up to date with the AI. And they're building stuff using these AI tools while still really focusing on understanding the core concepts to try to get up to that level that's just required now to break into the industry. And it's frustrating, it's annoying. I'm seeing a lot of people just losing hope and giving up. The ones that push forward are being rewarded for it, absolutely. And this isn't something I'm saying to scare you, but just the fact is the amount of effort required now to get a job in this industry is far greater than it used to be. And I can see that turning a lot of people off. So, if you're a junior, let me know how you feel right now, but I sympathize with you guys, and it is way more difficult now than it was 4 or 5 years ago. That's just the truth, and I don't really have a great solution for you other than if you put in the work, you will be rewarded, but most just aren't willing to do that. Now, the next thing that I've noticed is that the hiring process for software engineers is still extremely broken. We're in this weird era right now where you don't really need to have to actually write manual lines of code to be a developer. I mean, you should be able to do that, but you don't really have to do that on the job. And your job now as a software engineer is actually a lot different than it would have been 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, you're reviewing code, you're working with models, you're setting up workflows, you're producing, maybe tens of thousands of lines of code a day, right? Like if you're actually using these AI models effectively, yet the way that we're testing and looking for skill is the exact same that it was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. So we still have, leak code style interviews. We still have 5, 6, 7 rounds of bringing people in and asking them to literally write something out on the whiteboard. Now, there is a bit more focus on system design. That's what I've noticed, even at more like junior levels, mid levels now, you're getting asked system design compared to maybe it would have been reserved to senior roles before at some companies. But generally speaking, what they ask you to do in the interview is not at all related to the job. And it's a little bit just weird to me that we're still in this place. So, I mean, I know the hiring process always lags the reality of the job, but now it's this weird place where you could be a really great developer. You can get a lot done. You can produce a lot of code. You could have built some great applications. And just because you didn't spend 3 months grinding leak code, you simply cannot get a job. So the beginners are in this place where they know they need to keep up with AI, right? Or even if you're a mid-level developer, you need to actually be productive and get something done. But at the same time, you need to spend all of this time playing this stupid game of, passing leak code questions in order to land a job. So just something I'm noticing, right? Like still, this is the barrier to entry. And while it does accurately test, critical thinking skills and communication and collaboration, it's just this silly game that all of us developers are having to go through in order to prove to the company that we can get a job and then just never use any of that again. It's always been true, but now it just seems more ridiculous than ever, and it was just a bit of a rant. I'm sure you guys probably agree with me in the comments. Now, the next thing that I've noticed here is that soft skills and kind of business knowledge are really dominating in the industry. What I mean by that is that, a few years ago, you could just be like a really cracked developer who's kind of socially awkward and like, yeah, you pass all the technical interviews and you just kind of sit there and just, write a bunch of code. And when I say write code, I mean like literally writing code with your fingers on the keyboard. Now that's become less valuable. And what's more valuable is how can you convey, the business needs? How can you describe what impact your work is actually having? Even if you're doing really great software development work, you need to be able to demonstrate to the decision makers in a company why that's valuable. Now, when anyone can write 20,000 lines of code in a day using an AI agent, the onus is now put on you to really, pick what it is that you want to build, back up your decisions, articulate your thought process, collaborate with other developers, collaborate with agents, write prompts, right? And I've seen this over and over again that the people that have those good soft skills, they know how to communicate, they're funny, they're personable, they're someone who, other people want to work with. Well, it's always been true that they've had an advantage. They have an advantage much more so now than they would have in the past. And same with business knowledge, being able to translate technical requirements to real business impact in terms of bottom line, revenue, retention, all of those things is increasingly more and more valuable. And all of us software engineers are really shifting into this weird hybrid role of doing a bit of product management as well as the software engineering. And you can no longer just claim, I'm purely a back-end developer, I don't do anything else, because everyone at this point is now needing to make these decisions that would have been reserved for something like a product manager, because ultimately you're no longer just writing the code and implementing the solution. You're deciding what gets implemented, what gets written, and then being able to back that up to other people. And I've seen a lot of vibe coders now just crushing and building amazing products and great software in terms of what it produces or the outcome, even though they're technically not that talented or skilled, because they have that other side of the skill set, right? The soft skills, the business knowledge, the marketing, the product management. And a lot of you probably don't want to hear this, but the more you can lean into those other skills, just the better off you're going to be and the more well-rounded you will be as a developer, which is becoming increasingly more important. Now, look, this is my opinion. I could be completely wrong on a lot of the stuff that I'm saying here, but this is what I've noticed over the past few months. And while I don't think software engineering is going away, the role is dramatically shifting and your responsibilities are changing. And while we're still going to have software engineers, what you do today is going to be very different from what you do in 6 months, 12 months, 2-3 years. If you are someone who's serious about breaking into this industry or just staying in this industry, you do need to keep learning. You do need to keep sharpening your skills. You need to keep up to date with what's going on. And I think that's more important now than it's ever been in the past. And while I don't love that that's the case, that's just the reality of where we are. And I hope this video maybe gave you some insight. So anyways, guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. What's going on? What is this madness in this AI world? Do you feel overwhelmed? Are you scared? What are you doing? Are you shifting careers? I don't know what's going to happen. All I can do is share with you honestly what I'm seeing, and this is what I've noticed over the past few months. And I'm sure in 3 or 4 months from now, I'm going to make another video and have a completely different take. Anyways, guys, thanks for sticking around. I look forward to seeing you in another video.